As Allied forces push in on the Empire from all sides, the Japanese Army and Navy will be divided, faced with fighting a multi-front war.
It poses a horrendous problem for the Japanese in that they're strained everywhere. And planes that, could be sent to the Central Pacific to fight the U.S. Navy, in many cases are going down to New Guinea to fight against the Army down there.
By 1944, the Axis powers are on the defensive, as the Allies prepare for massive invasions in the Pacific, in France, and in Italy.
When you consider that American forces are heavily engaged in combat in Italy, that American forces are also about to conduct the opposed amphibious landing in Normandy on June 6th. So the United States military, it's demonstrating that it is capable of engaging in broad offensive operations on opposite sides of the world simultaneously.
Saipan will be one of the most important invasions of the war, a Normandy of the Pacific, and D-Day is set for June 15th. At the island base of Majuro in the Marshall Islands, thousands of men from the Navy, Army, and Marine Corps get ready for the invasion. Most of the sailors and Marines from different ships are strangers from every corner of the USA. But not all of these fighting men are destined to get along. By 1944, a 150-year rivalry still divides the Marines of the fleet from the ship's sailors. Damage control man Pedro Sandoval from Loretto, Texas, gets a close look at this rift when he has a chance run-in with a childhood friend from back home.
This Marine came aboard ship looking for me. And he walked in the shop and I seen him, and he was just like a brother to me before we even joined the service. And I gave him a big hug and everybody's looking at me, what's wrong with him? Giving the Marine a hug. And the Marines that were with him were surprised too. I said, he's just like a brother to me. And I haven't seen him since I left for the war.
Enterprise will sail as the flagship of her task group, but she is only part of a massive armada of 15 carriers, 7 battleships, 14 cruisers, over 50 destroyer escorts, and a score of transports, oilers, and supply ships.
One of the most beautiful sights I've ever seen. There were 14, 15 big United States carriers there, as well as light carriers and cruisers and destroyers. I have never in my life seen such a bunch of ships getting together.
The entire naval force is under the command of Vice Admiral Mark Mitcher. At 57 years old, Wisconsin native Mark Mitcher is a hard-fighting admiral and former naval aviator. As a career veteran with more than 30 years at sea, he knows how to use carriers like Enterprise and their aircraft in mortal combat against the enemy. Among the 15 carriers that Mitcher commands are 6 of the new Essex-class fleet carriers. Each of these giant flat tops displace more than 36,000 tons fully loaded, 10,000 more than Enterprise. They also pack heavier armament with 4 twin 5-inch guns, 8 single 5-inch guns, 8 quad-mount 40mm, and more than 40 20mm guns. They can also carry 110 aircraft to the Enterprise's 90. June 6, 1944. Enterprise and her task group steam away from the island of Majuro, bound for Saipan. As the ship cruises through the open seas, her executive officer comes on the loudspeaker and announces the news of the Normandy invasion in France. But the beaches of Normandy are half a world away. Enterprise and the Pacific Fleet are heading for a D-Day of their own. For the men of Enterprise, the road to victory and the way home is through Saipan and the Philippine Sea. But each time the Big E heads into battle, her men can only wonder when their famous luck might run out. Louisiana native and Enterprise Marine Louis Michaud already knows the risks after 6 months aboard ship.
You know your time might be coming. You just get it off your mind and do your job. You can't lie down. You get hit, you get hit. That's why the war is hell. I knew I was in danger, but so was all my comrades. We were working like a team. We had to just keep going, do what we're trained to do.
This time, Enterprise, the fleet, and the Marines are up against 32,000 Japanese troops, dug in on the hillsides of Saipan. Like their brothers at Guadalcanal and Tarawa, these defenders will fight to their death. But for the first time since the Battle of Santa Cruz, a massive Japanese carrier fleet is also preparing for battle. Battered by the bloodbaths at Midway, Guadalcanal, and Santa Cruz, the Imperial Navy has finally rebuilt and is ready to meet the Big E.
The Japanese Navy has tried frantically to build their carrier force into some sort of a replica of what they had at the beginning of the war. They have more carriers now.
Among the Japanese carriers are sister ships Shokaku and Zuikaku, the very same vessels that the Big E squared off against in the Eastern Solomons and Santa Cruz. And now they're back for a rematch with Enterprise.
So we were loaded for bear, and we knew that they were where they were and when they were coming.
The Imperial Task Force also includes the new mega carrier Taiho. It's unlike anything the Big E has ever gone up against. Taiho, which means Great Phoenix, is 30,000 tons of Imperial iron. Built by Kawasaki, she has 2 enormous hangar decks compared to Enterprise's 1. 61 aircraft, and instead of wood, her flight deck is plated with 3-inch armored steel. Her weaponry consists of 12 99mm flak guns and 51 25mm machine guns. She is the flagship of the entire carrier force, commanded by Vice Admiral Jizaburo Ozawa, aka the Gargoyle. He's 6 feet tall, has a chest covered with medals, and is the mastermind of the Empire's carrier fleet. Veteran of Java, Sumatra, and Guadalcanal. There's just one problem. Japan is running out of expert pilots. Most of them wiped out in the first year of the war. Ozawa's pilots are raw and poorly trained.
And it's a stark contrast to the fleet air arm that the Japanese began the Second World War with, when you consider that those were among the cream of the crop of naval aviation. But they're all gone. And by this stage of the war, in their place are new, moderately trained pilots, pilots who are not up to the task of going up against seasoned American naval aviators.
They were pretty far gone as far as skill was concerned. The difference between 1943 and 1944 was all the difference in the world. We had it, they didn't.
June 11th, 1944. D-Day -4. The veteran Hellcat fighters called the Grim Reapers launched their first attack against the Marianas from the Big E. Admiral Mitchell, a former pilot himself, gives the Reapers a simple order: cut their damn throats. In the skies over Saipan, the Hellcats blast enemy aircraft and their pilots into the afterlife. Next, the fighter planes strafe the airfields with hot .50 caliber lead. Parked aircraft are destroyed and go up in flames. Fuel tanks explode, and enemy gunners are blown to pieces. For 2 solid days, American fighters and bombers ravage Saipan and the nearby islands of Rota, Tinian, and Guam, doing all they can before the Marines storm shore. Next, the Iowa-class battleships turn their guns on Saipan. And Bill Martin has a close call when his plane is